Learning from Martha. We know more about Martha than many women in the Bible, although it's not as much as we would want. What we do know is that she owned a home. She had two siblings, Mary and Lazarus. Martha oversaw the affairs of her household, and we learn that she opened her home to Jesus and his disciples while they were traveling to different areas teaching and performing miracles. What an honor it must have been to have Jesus accept her invitation. And what pressure on such short notice. There must have been so many people besides the disciples who were in and around her home as she made room and prepared the meal. No doubt she needed help. This is how we are introduced to her, in her state of frustration with all the preparations. Before Martha speaks in this passage, we are told about Mary, her sister, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. In the end, you may know that Jesus recommended Mary's choice as the better way to live. Still, there are some other truths worth holding on to that adjust the shaking head of disappointment that we have over how Martha chose to handle the situation. First is Martha's hospitality. This is no small thing. It was Martha, not Mary, who invited Jesus and his disciples to come to their home. Had it not been for Martha, Mary would not have had the opportunity to sit at Jesus' feet and learn from him. Martha's spirit of welcome brought Christ to her household, which also bore the fruit of her brother's resurrection and Christ's sign to us that he is the resurrection and the life. Martha's open arms and faith paved the way for many to know and receive Christ. Second, Martha's honesty allows us to see ourselves in ways we don't readily admit. At times, we are worried and upset about many things, even while we are doing what we believe is the will of God. Then we also hold others to the same expectations as Martha did of Mary. In Jesus' time, yes, women were responsible for the home, and certainly there was nothing wrong with Martha making arrangements or her wanting help for that matter. It's just that when our daily lives or exploits for the Lord take us away from who and what is more important, there's a problem. Third, Martha's honesty is exemplary. She didn't hide her frustration with her sister. Instead, she took that frustration straight to the person who had the capacity to hear and do something. And more, Martha didn't hide her frustration with Jesus himself. "Lord, don't you care?" she asked. Many of us feel but rarely venture to ask the Lord this question, even when the worst has happened. Sometimes God's choices, God's ways, make us feel unloved, unseen, and unappreciated. Think about the prodigal son's faithful brother. What do we do with these feelings? Pretend in the presence of the one who searches our hearts? Martha went even further. There's an exclamation point at the end of, "Tell her to help me," because she was either simply raising her voice or speaking emphatically. She wasn't alone with Jesus. She said all these words in public. What would happen if we ventured to approach God this way? Was it disrespectful, bringing Jesus down to her level? Maybe. Was she like one of those Pharisees testing the Lord? Arguably. It is at this point, though, that Jesus responds, "Martha, Martha." We often take his whole response to her as an embarrassment to her, a foolish woman, not in control of her emotions or her mouth. But Jesus loved Martha and appreciated her efforts. He called her name twice, not to shame her, but out of endearment. And it came with that same ring of covenant relationship that we are reminded of with that double name calling of Abraham, Jacob, Moses, Samuel, Simon renamed Peter, and Saul turned Apostle Paul. Martha let herself be seen by her few words to Jesus, and Jesus met her in that vulnerable place. Unlike the Pharisee who had previously invited Jesus to dinner, Martha was open with her thoughts. The Pharisee said to himself regarding Jesus' treatment of social customs, while Mary came to him and asked, "How would our lives be different if we were honest with the Lord?" and in turn opened the door for him to respond. Lord, thank you for Martha and for Mary this morning. Thank you for Mary's example of sitting at your feet when there were so many other important things to do. Thank you for Martha, whose spirit of welcome we are indebted to, and whose open frustrations are a mirror for how we sometimes are. And thank you for loving us all, wherever we find ourselves. And thank you for always calling us into deeper relationship with you. Amen.